What's up, all you toy fans? This is your old pal Doc Johnson here. It's been an extremely long time. I posted a series of videos of my old collection room from back in the day, but I've since outgrown it. And like all things, I had to get a much bigger place. And so this past February, we bought a brand new house, and it's given me just so much more room. So I got to start from scratch and build a new and improved toy room that I'm going to show you, and I have to do it in sections because it's really large, so it'll be in a series of videos, but I hope you guys like it. I really am interested in what other collectors have to say, because I've so much enjoyed getting on YouTube and seeing all the different collections. You guys are awesome. This is such a great hobby, and I love seeing others in this hobby, and I love when you guys share your collections and the stories behind them, because that is really what it's all about. And and to me, the most interesting thing is seeing how you guys display your collections. That was really my motivation. So keep up the awesome work. I'm kind of in the stairwell right now as we're getting ready to make our way down to there's actually 4 different sections to this toy room. Again, it's a massive space. It really helps to have a lot of good space. So it's a little over about 4,500 square foot total. So again, I won't be able to do it all in one video, but I will get started, and I hope you guys like it enough and want to tune into the others. So this is kind of the stairwell going down, and again, it's all under construction. I've still got lots more to do, but I was so excited I just wanted to get started with my first video. So as we go down the stairs, I'm just kind of playing homage to artwork, which is such a big part of collection, and this great artwork that we find on our favorite comic characters and our favorite toy lines and things like that. So you'll see that theme all along my collection as we go, but I thought that I would, and stairwells are great spaces to display art or vintage movie posters. Who doesn't love the original Halloween, one of the best of all time, followed by my vintage Jaws poster, again one of my favorites. Over here we have Arnold in the Terminator, a classic, and then up here a movie I've always loved called Arthur by Dudley Moore. And then I have some of the autographs, and eventually this whole wall space will be filled with different autographs of different people I see. See Miss Allison McManus, one of the Power Rangers, and you see up here Mr. Philo Bonhart and Tom Cook, who were illustrators on the classic show Super Friends from when I was a kid. And again, we will make our way down as we go. Again, just some different posters that I have on the wall of classic superheroes and all that. I'm a DC guy by heart. Batman, Green Lantern, Aquaman, Wonder Woman, those are great, but obviously Marvel is awesome as well, with Spider-Man and Punisher and Hulk and the Avengers, all good stuff. Again, this kind of collections and toys starts with comic books, it seems to be, and then when you get a little bit older and your imagination stretches, it turns into different toy lines. So kind of action figures and comics and superheroes seem to all kind of go hand in hand. Certainly does in my book. And of course, at the bottom of the stairwell, I always like to be welcomed with probably my favorite superhero film of all time, the Nicholson Keaton Batman. And I was so excited to hear just this week that Keaton's going to sign on and play the role of Batman again. Never thought I would see that, because any other toy fans out there, if you can remember the summer of 1989, who can forget it? It was Batmania. I mean, Batman stuff was everywhere. The symbol. And it was so neat to see. It was total marketing blitz, and I was on board, totally sold with that. So, first section of this toy room, I've kind of sectioned it off. Again, this will be named Eternia, because what action figure collection is complete without probably one of the best toy lines of all time, which is Masters of the Universe. Certainly my all-time favorite, as it is with several of yours that I have seen. So again, this room is under construction and soon to be added, because one thing I wanted to have in this toy room is always room for expansion. I never wanted to be busting at the seams and then I can't collect any more stuff. So I wanted to make sure you're seeing a lot of empty spaces that will soon be filled with things as I come across them and get them set up. I still have some painting to do and some decorative pieces and all that. And again, I like fine details. You can see even the back walls, I've used a lot of greens and purples. As all you He-Man fan knows, are 2 pretty central theme colors in the Masters of the Universe line, with purple being Skeletor and Snake Mountain, green being He-Man and Castle Grayskull. On this side of the room is the vintage line. Of course, you got your Snake Mountain. I can remember when I was saving up, I used to I had that toy on what was called layaway. For all you youngsters, layaway was a system that we had back in the day where you could have the store hold an item for you and then you could go and make payments on it. And such a cool idea. I used to run in there every week after mowing lawns and pay on my layaway for my Snake Mountain. I was so excited to bring it home one day. And here we go. Fright Zone. Right underneath these, very, very cool that I saw online, these big watercolor posters of the old He-Man magazine, which was back in the day. These posters are awesome. I think there's still several in the set that I want to get, but they make amazing backdrops for my collection. Again, there's vintage Castle Grayskull. Yes, I have every single one of the weapons that came with the weapons rack. I took very good care of my toys, even as a kid. And there's a tack track in front of it, and the practice mechanism, you know, for the characters. Of course, up here is Point Dread and the Talon Fighter. Along with there, again, another He-Man watercolor magazine behind that. And again, this shelf display is designed for my vintage collection. Yes, I don't have them all yet. I'm still missing quite a few that came in the later lines, which are a little bit harder to find. But as I go to these toy stores and toy shows and things like that, I love being able to find some more. And eventually I will complete that set. I'm very much a completist. And I'm very much, as you can see, loose completist. I like having them out to display. Some people like them in the packages and like to put them up on the walls and make it look like a store. I think that's fantastic. That's just this is what I prefer because I like the art of the display. As you can see, not only displaying the characters, but also what's behind them. As you notice, the backdrops are artwork themed to Masters of the Universe. And a lot of the art that you'll see is the actual card backs of different other figures that will make more sense as we go along. But I like being able to see a three-dimensional look of the figures and then the artwork, catching just glimpses of it in the back. I think it really sets it off. I really enjoy doing that. And again, the vintage line is continuing to grow. As you'll see, I've got lots of empty room down here. I just started, and again, it's still under construction, the She-Ra portion of my collection, which will take up probably the next 2 rows. Again, here's a good tip for collectors. If space is a challenge, which it usually is for most people, layer your shelves. I have noticed that some of you do not, and I suggest, first of all, it looks really good. You can see all the figures clearly when you do it. Kind of gives it a nice stair-step, three-dimensional look. But as far as effectiveness, it also doubles the amount of space that you can put on your shelf. So just a little tip for thought. You can take any shelf display and double the amount that you can put on it just by simply layering it. And by layering, I mean all I did was simply put pieces of wood behind there that you can see. Again, everything's painted black. Black's a good base color, you know, to display anything, and it kind of washes out. And again, that second layer, you can put figures on top of it like a layer, and that is throughout. As you can see, you can get 2 nice layers on one shelf display, with the exception of, you know, different ones like Screech over there or Zor. This shelf over here, as we notice, is for some of the larger pieces, some of the extra play set like the Slime Pit, and also some of the vehicles, Dragon Walker there, the collector's case, different He-Man items. Again, behind there you'll see in the wood background, which I do not like. Eventually that will be covered up with either He-Man artwork or just simply green matted paper. A lot of times I just use construction paper. That seems to be really, really good wall space. But that will be covered up because I think it really makes the figures pop and the collection pop. So you will see that behind there in place of the brown wood wall. Up here you'll see some more of the watercolor, and again, wow, what's this big empty space here? Well, that is for the soon to come, and it should be coming any time, that I'm excited about, and that will be the Masters of the Universe Classics Snake Mountain, which I ordered last March. And again, because of COVID, there's a little bit slowdowns, but I can't wait. So that shelf piece right there, both of them together, will be where I sit my Snake Mountain Classics. That is an amazing piece. I cannot wait to get that. It's supposed to be coming sometime this summer, so I will update another video whenever that comes. And again, the rest of this wall will be kind of nice and filled in, beautiful colors. Along some of the walls here, I've kind of fit in some of my comic book collections. Again, I like being able to display them nicely, so on the front of them I always have a picture of whoever the superhero is on there. So again, something about the emblems and the symbols that these superheroes use, there's something very, very cool about that. Sets them apart, so each one has their own drawer. And again, that's not the Bullock, is just my what I call my leftover collection. My main collection of my comic books are kind of blended in throughout on another section of my toy room, which you'll you will be seeing here in just a few minutes. There's my old box for the Snake Mountain, which I've kept. I need to get a box for the Castle Grayskull. I do not have that anymore, unfortunately, but I'm sure I will run across that one of these times at these toy shows. Over here on this side of the Eternia room, you can see this is dedicated to the Masters of the Universe Classics. Such an amazing line. Again, I'm such an old school collector. For years, all I was collecting were things from the 70s, 80s, early part of the 90s. You know, my younger years. I know I'm showing my age. I'm actually 45, so I was a kid basically in the during the 80s, early part of the 90s. But then all of a sudden, in 2008, came Masters of the Universe Classics, and I fell in love with the line and just had to have it. So that is probably the newest sets of things that I collect. I don't do any of the new Marvel stuff or the newer Star Wars stuff or things like that, but it's probably the newest level. Of course, this line I think is slowing down, but I plan on eventually, because I'm a completist, challenging myself to get every single figure. Right now, this is the first series, and the second series for sure. The 08-09 series and the 2010 series is complete, and then I'm starting to work on kind of going in order, and then obviously there's some that are from all different series just as I come across them. And again, I love this. And you can see I built, you know, all the shelves that you see are custom built by me because they fit the structure and the design of the actual space that's provided. Again, painted everything black because it's a good stationary mute color. And then you can see the backdrops were part of the card art that came. Again, I love the card art and the packaging that these figures came in. Even though I like to open them, I always take out either the card backs, and then you all that collect this line know what those little pieces of green are, the little Castle Grayskull type wall looking thing. Those are what was decorated inside of the packages, and that stuff was so cool, something that simple. So I held on to all of those, and now look, and I just think they look really, really good as display pieces. And then the little emblems, the Masters of the Universe Classics line, I take all of those pop right out of the card backs for some of you that have opened your classics, which is a nice cool feature, and I hang on to all those because they look really good. I kind of stationary, I put them in different places along the collection, and it really makes it pop. So along the back you can see the card art, like behind Count Marzo here you can see the card back behind there. And again, it kind of makes with removing the plastic and all that, kind of gives a figure a three-dimensional look, like he's coming outside of it, and it's paying homage to the card art that I never want to forget, because the card art is amazing on that stuff. So I never get rid of that stuff because it becomes part of the display itself. Again, going all the way up to the top there. Again, this room ceilings are 12 foot tall, so I know it doesn't look like it in the camera, but it's given me a lot of space here. Again, a nice watercolor poster behind there. Serves as a central, and we got He-Man, Battle Cat, and Skeletor and Panther, kind of the central main part of the theme. They of course are front and center. That just makes the most sense. And all along the way here, along the back. So again, this is certainly not all of them. In fact, this is not even probably a third of them, but eventually I will get there. Now we'll kind of scroll up and down, but Shadow Weaver is a great piece. It's one of my favorite ones in the line. I think she displays really well. And again, I love those things that Matty Collector used to make, these little connected 3 stands that you could get. 1, 2, and 3. You could put 3 figures on them. They had the pegs. And then I also bought the individual Snake Mountain and Grayskull stands. You can't see them because of where they sit, but I'll raise it up a little bit so you can kind of see some of the stands. And they just, again, the little attention to detail, and Matty Collector really made this for the collectors, you know, the people that like to display. And again, up there you can see the individual Grayskull stands there. And then the individual, and then over here the individual Snake Mountain stand. So we'll certainly be getting more of those because it's just a really cool added level of flavor to whatever you're displaying. And again, this is the side that's currently under construction. I just started it, so I was expanded. I've got my first few sets of figures on this newest edition, which is to the left of the main piece there you see. And again, started already with the source, the goddess, and you got Mermista and Double Mischief, even though she'll always be called Double Trouble in my book, Shadow Beast and Captain Glenn and Icarus, and the Filmation Jitsu. So they're the newest ones on this particular. Again, room for expansion. I still have to work on the rest of this. And you can see why those, again, just a little trick that I did, because this shelf display, there was a lot of space in between here and then the actual wall. Well, that was too much. I was afraid the figures might fall and then fall in between there and I wouldn't be able to get to them and they'd get damaged. But then I figured out that those cards, the boxes, like here, either the white ones or the brown ones, actually fit perfectly snug behind there, and they stay stationary against the wall, and that enables you to put your figures in the front, and then they're never in danger of falling backwards and into the back behind the shelf where it sits in between the wall. So it was just a little trick that I was able to do, and they stay perfectly preserved because those boxes are really cool. And then I can just I can put card backs. You can see that card back there is from the Battle Ram, you know, that came with the Man-at-Arms. Again, I love the artwork on it, so I took that and that became the backdrop for that display piece. So again, I always try to think of little details that make it stand out. So it is under construction. Again, where you see those card boxes will be covered with more of what you see here. Again, that's the card back to the double figure of Molar and Skeletor. I think it works out really great, you know, with the skyline there and the planets. It's just what a nice backdrop. And again, this will all be eventually covered up there. Gonna move my way up here, and that's our two giants, Megator and Titus, behind the cool Masters of the Universe poster. Excuse me. And then, of course, one of the biggest pieces in the vintage collection. This was the area that I had the best room for, and that is the Eternia. And it gets almost complete. I think I'm missing one of the weapons that came in the weapons rack. It was the one that looked like a almost like a manta ray almost. I think it was some sort of crossbow or something like that, but other than that, I think it's the only one I'm missing. Yes, you don't see all of the track. That's because that track is really difficult to stay up, so I just put enough in order to display one of the cable cars, because if I put on there, they have a problem of cracking where you connect them, where the little plastic pieces go, and I was kind of tired of doing it. This thing had been moved so many times in my 40 years of 30 plus years of having this thing that I just, you know, they're nice and protected. I keep the track elsewhere. I don't feel a need to display it because I'm afraid they'll just get more damage. But I think that looks neat. It's kind of in a corner piece there, kind of built a stationary place there, another custom display piece. All along the way there, I started putting the mini comics that came in the vintage figures in little frames because I think they look really cool on the wall. There's another watercolor. Again, I got all those watercolors just on simply on eBay, and they aren't, you know, particularly expensive, which is great. And again, they look amazing on the wall, especially as backdrops for your collection. Again, more of those. I have more frames that I need to get because I have probably at least 30 more of those mini comics. I almost have the whole series. I just came across them here and there on different treasure hunts, and I just need to get little individual frames for them. I love those green ones. I wish I could find more of the green frame ones because those so far look the best. And again, wherever you see wood wall here, which I don't like to see, you will see color. You'll either see some greens, you'll see some purples, just like you did on this particular wall here. I just need to get it all up. But I was too excited, and I wanted to get started on this. So this is the Eternia section. Again, there's more, again, I was kind of able to blend in some of my comic collection. Again, I have a massive comic book collection that goes all the way back to the Silver Age, early 60s. All the way up to modern day. Again, probably 60 to 70,000 strong, and that's a generous estimate. Very, very much love to read them. I've read every single one of them. I have them all in books and protective binders, or actually bags and boards, excuse me. And I love them. I will never part with them. They take up a lot of space, but I was able to kind of blend them in to my action figure collection. That way they can help hold things up, as you'll see up there. And they're accessible. I can get to every single drawer that I want to if I just want to sit down and read and go from there. All right, as we kind of round the corner, again, this is under construction. Again, it's kind of sectioned off into two places here. I can kind of make, as I make a sharp left here, you'll see it starts with some of my cabinets, you know, that hold my comic books, as you can see. These are some of my more valuable ones, like the Captain America. I have a full run of the original Captain America run. I have Detective Comics there. I've got a Batgirl, Nightwing. Again, whatever symbol you see is actually what's housed inside. I have the original Silver Surfer run, the 18-issue series that came out in the 60s. Great, great. I have the first Doctor Strange, his first individual run. Again, I'm a completist. I like to get the entire ones. I have a full Barry Allen Flash run. So again, these comics are very, very in good quality. And again, I like to read every single thing that I get. So as we come around here, again, this is under construction. This is what I've been working on lately. This will be kind of the mask area. That blank spot on top of here is going to be where Boulder Hill will sit eventually. And then this shelf will be painted. I just made it and I wanted to get it up. I needed something to film, so that's why it's not painted yet, but it will be painted black. And inside of here, you'll see some nice artwork and things that have to do with that great, great cartoon and toy line called Mask, which came out in '85, and I think it lasted a couple of seasons. And then this shelf display I just got. And again, it needs to be painted. We'll house, so this little whole section right here, we'll be able to house all of the masks. Again, I try to build a display section that would eventually, potentially house every single item in that particular line, because I like the challenge of trying to complete it. Now, I would hate to have a collection or display somewhere and then I wouldn't be able to display every single one in the piece. That's just my personal preference. So again, this is what it looks like now. I will be able to add more shelf space right here, along with filling these up with the rest of those cool vehicles and figures from that particular line. Just literally yesterday, I finished painting these shelves. And again, eventually they will probably be more for what I'm getting ready to show you next, which is my Lord of the Rings collection. I added this shelf across the top as well to house some of the larger pieces that I know are in that collection. I don't see a lot of Lord of the Rings collectors out there, which is I'm a little bit surprised of. I think it was an amazing, amazing toy line and just an awesome set of movies. Some of my top favorites, and it's just fantastic. So if there are any more Lord of the Rings collectors out there, just give me a shout out. I'd love to see your collections. Again, Lord of the Rings had two different sets of really, really cool figure lines. The first was these smaller ones called the Battle of Middle Earth, excuse me. And the detail was just amazing, like the Balrog set with Gandalf there. And again, across the top there's the showdown with Saruman and Grima Wormtongue and Gandalf itself. See the ring rats and their showdown with Aragorn and Frodo and Bilbo and all those guys there. Again, great. And you can see I love these card backs, because not only was the display piece, the round piece that came in the front of it, but the back with the map is just awesome. Beautiful, beautiful artwork that I wanted to make sure also was displayed, and I think it just looks really good with the display itself. Got a little bit of work to do. I think I'm going to use yellow as a backdrop for these particular areas where you see the wood. I think yellow works really well with this particular collection. So I threw those two yellow pieces up there to see how it would look. There's a lot of pieces in this line, so it's going to be a really, really challenging one. I was able to put together I think is a complete checklist, so that'll make it easier. And you can see that I built the next, expanded. That way I've got enough room to house every figure and little vehicle in that particular line. And that would stretch all the way up to the top there, but it's starting to come around. I like it. And below that, we have the larger figures that came around after each movie. And again, these are such great detail. And again, I don't see a lot of people that collect these, which again, I think they're really awesome. You can see the card backs in the backdrop make amazing backdrops. Again, they did the same design with the ring, circular ring and emblem in the front, and then the map that was part of the back of the card back, and it just looks great as a display piece behind them. And again, I love this movie, love the series of films, and I absolutely love these figures and plan on getting more. I don't have that many in the series. I have the entire first run, which is the Fellowship of the Ring. That came in the green card backs, as you can see behind there. And again, I like to go in order now, since I've missed my chance at when they were originally on shelves. So now I'm starting on the red carded, which is the Two Towers. As you can see here, some of the card backs. But I have all my checklists ready. And again, there's a lot of figures in this line, a lot of multi-packs and all that. But part of the fun of the challenge is kind of the treasure hunt, is looking for those, maybe those rare or short print pieces. Again, so eventually this will all be the Lord of the Rings larger figure collection set, but it's coming around. Again, custom built shelves. Every one of the shelf displays that you see here are all custom built. Then as we move on here, we start, of course, with this huge Skyscraper Daily Bugle playset that came as part of the Spider-Man animated series, which is from the 90s. Fantastic cartoon if you haven't seen it. Again, kind of getting invaded by Galactus up there, who was actually part of the Fantastic Four line, but that was the best place that I could display him. Underneath there, I got my Silverhawks going on. Again, I don't have a lot of them. They have really jumped up in price, so they're not as easy to find. I've been to several toy shows and looking for Silverhawks, and they are not there, but eventually that will be where they will be housed. Underneath there is the Terminator line that came out in the early 90s. Pretty good piece. Some of the pieces are better than others. Some of them have got a little bit goofy, like some of the villains and things like that. But love the figure series. Love the lines. You can see the card backs behind there. And eventually this newest shelf, again, it's still under construction. That will be the rest of them. But those two shelves alone should be able to house that entire run. Then underneath there, if you were a kid in the 80s, then you know all about WWF and the wrestlers. These are the Hasbro wrestling figures. Hasbro was the only wrestling collection line that I did. I did not do LJN. I like the Hasbro better because of the vast array of characters and the detail. So this one, again, is under construction, but you can see I've kind of started. I have the entire first series and most of the second series. I'm just going down the list. I think there was 10 series in the line. And again, all of these will eventually be filled up with WWF Hasbro wrestling figures. Still fairly easy to find, so not too worried about completing that one. Then as we move over, again, an amazing 90s cartoon right there, Spider-Man, the animated series. And this first several shelves is all dedicated to Spider-Man. You can see a very, very tall room. Again, these are 12-foot ceilings, as you can see, and I can kind of back up for you so you can get kind of an overview of how it looks all together. Again, layered shelves. I built them almost stair-step style so I could fit more of them. And this here, I'll kind of frame it. There we go. That'll frame everything. You can see I've got an empty shelf on the bottom right there, and that will house the rest of what I need. I'm still missing some of the multi-packs. There was an 8-figure multi-pack, and then there was I think a Mary Jane and a Peter Parker multi-pack, and there's a couple from that Vampire Wars that I'm needing, and that's it. I think I'm down to, if you count the 8 in that multi-pack, maybe 12 or 13 figures left altogether, and I'll have that complete run. Again, each figure line you've noticed has some that are a little harder to find. For whatever reason, they pick 1 or 2 that are very, very difficult to find, either because they were short printed or they weren't in demand, so they were pulled from the shelves earlier, or I don't know what it is, but it's kind of fun to kind of dive into and research why some figures are more rare and more have better price tags or more expensive than some of the others. I know at one time several of the villains in this Spider-Man line came with a pretty good price. I remember Rhino, for some reason, back in the late 90s when we were collecting, he had jumped all the way up to $25, I remember, and back then that was a huge deal to go that far. Now you can find him at a pretty reasonable price. But for whatever reason, maybe just supply and demand, he got very, very expensive. You can see the backs. The backdrops are the actual card backs of the Spider-Man animated series line. Again, they made different versions and different card backs, which makes it interesting. So I've tried to be able to display every single style of card back available, just as a, again, kind of such a great line of toys. And again, I got 1 shelf left, which will house the rest of them. You can see I've got the shelf ready to go with the card backs along the top that kind of act as a wallpaper, so to speak. And then that one will be done. Underneath that, and I will back up for you. Next figures in the line, kind of an underrated line, but a cool one nonetheless. This was the Iron Man that came around at the same time. You'll notice a lot of Toy Biz, and there was a Marvel figure explosion going on in the 90s as far as action figures and action figure lines. But this was the Iron Man line, which I thought displayed really well because I think it was the shiny chrome armor on people like War Machine and the different versions of Iron Man. They made a ton of different versions of Iron Man, which I would have probably liked to have seen maybe more a different cast of characters instead of 28 versions of Iron Man. But other than that, that's just a minor complaint. This coincided with also Iron Man had his own cartoon, although it was short-lived there in the 90s. You can see the card back. The 3 dragons are probably the most valuable, along with Mr. U.S. Agent. For some reason, I think he was only available in Canada at the time, and I'll show him So he jumped up quite a bit, especially back in the 90s. You can see him there in the corner. He's probably the most expensive of the regular series figures in the line, I think because of availability. And I could be wrong, so please, if I am, please correct me, but I think he was only available in Canada, if I remember, or just wasn't available across, nationwide here in the United States. But for whatever reason, he's more valuable than the rest. Of course, all three dragons, the gold, the silver, and Fin Fang Foom, carry a pretty good price. Again, these figures are complete because I like my stuff to be complete. After Iron Man, we drop down to the final section of this shelf display, and that is the Fantastic Four, which also came out at the same time as the Iron Man and the Spider-Man. There in the 90s, also had its own animated cartoon series. Again, you got a nice wide cast of characters from the Fantastic Four line, which I thought was really, really good. You'll see their card backs were really cool. I like the glittery Fantastic Four emblem that came on these card backs. This is a great figure line. Probably went a little crazy with all the different versions of Thing. You had to buy, you'll see you'll see three things that look the exact same. That's because he was packaged sometimes with different figures. And when I want everything in the line, that means some of the repacks that came with different figures. So that's why you'll see three of his. But this was a pretty good run. I think the most expensive figure in this might possibly be either the Namor, because of availability, and or Super Skrull possibly right here, and or because of just recently, I'm not, the Thanos over here in the corner might have gained a little bit of popularity thanks to the Infinity War movie that came out. Again, I could be wrong because as a whole, when I say rare here, rare for a 90s Toy Biz action figure is a little different than rare for a vintage Star Wars or things like that. These were, in massive supplies and quantities, which made it, affordable and readily available for collectors like me. So that is one section. Again, this is just one small corner of part two of my toy room. As we move over, again, keeping in line with that 90s vintage or that 90s animated superhero sign, we have the Ghost Rider, which did not have near as many figures. I don't think it was as popular as a line, and again, he did not have a cartoon series to kind of help support like the others did. But cool figures nonetheless, especially the card backs. I love that artwork with the flaming skull, and his came with little mini comics, as you can see. And I love the orange, in the backdrop, really makes it look cool. Not that many figures in a line. Again, I have the entire run of these single packed creatures. Now I'm missing, and they seem to be a little more rare. Or there was a set of 3 motorcycles called Stunt Cycles, Flamin' Stunt Cycles. And then there was a set of 3 motorcycles called the Spirit of Vengeance series. And again, those are a little bit harder to find as I'm coming across things, but I will be on the lookout, and then I will officially have that whole line. I think the Marvel poster right there kind of makes for a nice display piece. It's a Marvel themed. Underneath here, again in the 90s, there was a figure line called Marvel Superheroes, which was kind of a generic. These figures weren't the greatest as far as articulation, and again, for younger people, this is the best that they had back in the days. But this was to kind of compete with what was going on at DC, which was at that time the Batmania has been going on. So the Michael Keaton and the Dark Knight series and the Batman Returns action figures from Kenner. So they were trying to compete with that. So again, you got a nice cast of characters and all that, which was nice. This is the entire run of that series. I went a little crazy on the Venoms, and I went a little crazy on the Spider-Man. So you got multiple versions of Spider-Man and Venom for some reason. Maybe they were just because they're the most popular characters and all that. Again, they had the card backs were really cool because they would feature the actual heroes with great artwork. And sometimes you'll see that on my display piece, like you'll see my backdrop right here in front, and then I'll take a card back and kind of put it in the front, and then eventually figures in the front of there. I just think that makes for a really nice display piece. Myself, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Again, this was probably the most expensive figure in that line, which was the Vanishing Color Invisible Woman. She fetches a pretty good price if you find her, especially on card back, still sealed up. For some reason, she was more rare than the rest of them. But that is the entire line of that Marvel Superheroes line that came out in the mid-90s. And again, I've got some more room on the shelf, and what I'll end up, this will be is what I call an overflow shelf. I'll probably fill it in with X-Men because there's tons in that X-Men X-Force line that I'm getting ready to show you. So it's nice to have a little bit of overflow if they don't quite all fit in one particular section. Underneath him, you have Hulk. Again, he had his own animated series in the 90s, which I really liked. But Hulk, let me move that. I forgot because I'm still working on this shelf. And he's kind of came in two different waves. You know, first was the kind of the regular series called Incredible Hulk. And again, you had these larger size figures. That one was cool because it came with a smaller Bruce Banner that would fit inside of him. Got Absorbing Man. That She-Hulk was an exclusive to Toy Fair. Anybody remember Toy Fair magazine? Was that not one of the coolest magazines ever? So sad when that thing went away. But Toy Fair used to make these exclusive figures that you could only get through their magazine. So I was able to kind of land that one. She's pretty hard to find because of that. But you can see all the way across. That's the regular She-Hulk there. And then underneath, and then their second wave, they kind of changed things and made it to more for the Incredible Hulk animated series line. And Wendigo back there and Zax. So this shelf will complete that. I have all the first series, but I'm missing quite a few from the animated series run, but that's what that empty space will be eventually as I come across it. Then as we scroll down, again, this is an overflow shelf of the next series I'm getting ready to show you, which is the massive X-Men X-Force series. They made a ton of figures in that line, and that took up a whole section of shelving and then some. So this is the overflow. I kind of went backwards showing this to you, but that X-Men animated line is huge. Again, down there are some of the later series ones that I've tried to keep sectioned off, which is the Waterworks series, the X-Men Monster series, Missile Flyers will go on that one. I think those were the last three lines made. Robot Fighters, that's right, that's the other one. So those will all fit nicely into that little section, and those were the last of the X-Men series. And again, I will turn the... As I turn the corner here and back up for you, we'll get into the X-Men, which was a great animated series that came out in the 90s, probably one of the best. And you can see, again, this is a 12-foot ceiling, started with a nice wooden poster of a comic frame. And we have X-Men figures. And again, the series was lined hundreds of figures in this line. Again, sometimes repaints and repackages, and it makes it a little bit challenging. But I have probably 90% of that particular line. I'm down to a few from the X-Force. I think I'm down to 2 figures on that one. I go down, and then of course I call them the expansion series, like the ones that I just talked about: Robot Fighters, Missile Flyers, Waterworks. X-Men, again, double shelved, which really helps on space. And that is the X-Men series that go all the way up. And again, this is just part of it. I'm glad you guys tuned in. I've still got lots more to show you, which includes like my Dungeons and Dragons series. I've got a whole I call Star Wars Street, because again, what figure collection isn't complete without major Star Wars collection on that section. Then I also have what's called the Heroes Room, which gets into my Batman and my DC Superheroes collection, like the animated series, which is again probably my second favorite figure line other than Masters of the Universe. It also has my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles collection and my G.I. Joe collection. Those are all my heroes, because Turtles are heroes in a half shell, and G.I. Joe is real American hero. And then, of course, Batman is the ultimate superhero. So the Heroes Room is coming soon. I hope you guys will tune in, and I'll show you the rest of my comic books. I'll show you Star Wars Street, and I'll show you my Dungeons and Dragons. Again, I have a lot of figure lines. We're talking about a little over 15,000 figures, and again, they're all loose and complete. My Mego collection is also in there, and so please stay tuned. And again, I would love to hear what you all think. I love hearing from other collectors, and check out some of their videos as well. Keep this hobby alive and well. It's a great hobby, so let's subscribe to each other, give each other a thumbs up, and keep on the happy collecting. I'll see you guys really soon for parts 2 and 3 of my Doc Johnson's action figure collection room. See you soon.